From crossing the Jordan to conquering Jericho, the book of Joshua is a story of faith, courage, and God's unfailing promises. Join us as we journey through the epic conquest and covenant of God's people. The year is 1406 BC. The Israelites stand on the brink of a long-awaited promise, the land of Canaan, a land flowing with milk and honey, promised by God to Abraham over 400 years earlier. But this moment is more than a milestone. It marks a turning point in the history of God's covenant people. Moses, their great leader, is gone, and the weight of leadership now rests on Joshua, son of Nun. Following Moses' death, God spoke directly to Joshua, commissioning him to lead the Israelites. In Joshua 1 verse 9, the Lord declared, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." This was not only a command, but a reassurance that God's presence would remain with his people as they stepped into the unknown. The Promised Land, stretching from the Jordan to the Mediterranean Sea, symbolized more than territory. It was a physical manifestation of God's covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This land was to be a place where his people would dwell, a nation set apart to reflect his glory to the world. But before they could claim this inheritance, they would face challenges that would test their faith and obedience. As Joshua took command, he faced an enormous task, leading a nation of over 2 million people across the Jordan River and into Canaan, a land inhabited by fortified cities, mighty armies, and idol-worshipping cultures. Yet, Joshua's confidence rested not in human strength, but in the promises of Yahweh, the God who had delivered them from Egypt and sustained them in the wilderness. The book of Joshua is more than a record of conquest. It is a testament to God's faithfulness and a call to his people to trust in his promises. This is the story of a people stepping into their divine destiny, guided by a leader whose strength lay in his unwavering faith in the God who goes before them. The journey of Joshua begins here, on the banks of the Jordan River, as a new chapter in Israel's history unfolds. In 1406 BC, after the death of Moses, God spoke directly to Joshua, son of Nun. Joshua had been Moses' trusted assistant, a man of unwavering faith and courage. Now, he was tasked with leading Israel into the Promised Land. In Joshua 1 verse 9, God's command was clear: "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." This commission marked a pivotal moment in Israel's history. It was a transition from Moses' leadership to Joshua's, and from wandering in the wilderness to claiming their inheritance. Joshua's first challenge lay just ahead. The Jordan River, swollen from spring rains, separated Israel from the land promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. In Joshua 3, the Lord instructed Joshua to have the priests carry the Ark of the Covenant into the Jordan River. As their feet touched the water's edge, the river stopped flowing, and the people crossed on dry ground. This miraculous event mirrored the parting of the Red Sea 40 years earlier, reaffirming God's power and presence among his people. At God's command, Joshua instructed 12 men, one from each tribe, to take a stone from the riverbed and set it up at Gilgal. These stones served as a memorial, a tangible reminder of God's deliverance. Joshua declared in Joshua 4 verse 24, "These stones are to be a sign among you, so that you may always fear the Lord your God." At Gilgal, the Israelites prepared for their next steps. This was not just a physical preparation for conquest, but a spiritual renewal. Joshua ensured that the covenant with God was honored, reinstating the practice of circumcision for the new generation born during the wilderness journey. Afterward, they celebrated the Passover, remembering their deliverance from Egypt and renewing their commitment to Yahweh. With the Jordan River behind them and the Promised Land before them, Israel was ready to begin the conquest of Canaan. But Joshua knew that the battles ahead would not be won by human strength alone. They would depend entirely on the Lord's guidance and power. The stage was set for a series of events that would forever define Israel's history. Act 1 of the book of Joshua is a testament to God's faithfulness and power. The miraculous crossing of the Jordan River served as both a sign of his presence and a reminder of his promises. As the Israelites prepared to face the challenges ahead, their success would depend on their obedience to the God who went before them, paving the way for their inheritance. Jericho, one of the oldest fortified cities in the world, was the first obstacle in Israel's conquest of Canaan. In Joshua 6, God gave specific instructions. The Israelites were to march around the city once a day for 6 days, with priests blowing trumpets. On the 7th day, they marched 7 times. At Joshua's command, the people shouted, and the walls of Jericho fell, a demonstration of God's power and the Israelites' obedience to his commands. In a remarkable display of God's mercy, Rahab, a Canaanite woman who sheltered Israelite spies, and her family were spared. This act of salvation underscored the inclusivity of God's grace to those who aligned themselves with him. Despite their victory at Jericho, Israel's next battle at Ai ended in defeat. The reason? Disobedience within the camp. Achan had taken treasures devoted to destruction, violating God's command. His sin brought consequences not just to himself, but to the entire nation. After addressing the sin in their midst, Joshua led the Israelites to a decisive victory over Ai. This event illustrated a key lesson. Success in the Promised Land depended on obedience to God's commands. In Joshua 9, the Gibeonites, fearing Israel's God, devised a plan to secure their survival. Pretending to be from a distant land, they deceived Joshua into making a peace treaty. Although their actions were rooted in fear, this event highlighted the importance of seeking God's guidance in every decision. Despite their deception, the Gibeonites were spared and became servants to Israel, serving as a reminder of God's sovereignty and the need for discernment in leadership. Facing a coalition of Amorite kings, Joshua led Israel in a miraculous victory near Gibeon. In Joshua 10, as the battle raged, Joshua prayed, "Sun, stand still over Gibeon, and you, moon, over the valley of Ajalon." God granted his request, halting the sun and moon and extending the day. Hailstones from heaven struck down more enemies than the swords of Israel, displaying God's direct intervention. This extraordinary event, the sun standing still, was a testament to God's power and his faithfulness to fight for his people. The Southern Campaign marked a turning point in Israel's conquest of Canaan, securing their foothold in the land. Act 2 of Joshua chronicles a series of triumphs, each underscoring the importance of faith, obedience, and God's divine intervention. From the walls of Jericho to the long day at Gibeon, these victories were not by human might, but by the hand of God. Yet the journey was far from over. Greater challenges lay ahead as Israel moved deeper into the Promised Land. The division of Canaan marked a significant milestone in Israel's journey. After years of conquest, Joshua distributed the land among the 12 tribes, fulfilling God's promise to Abraham. In Joshua 14, Caleb, one of the original 12 spies, boldly claimed the hill country of Hebron. Despite being 85 years old, Caleb declared, "The Lord has kept me alive these 45 years. So give me this hill country that the Lord promised me." Caleb's faithfulness and courage were rewarded, and his story became a testament to the importance of trusting in God's promises, no matter the obstacles. Through Joshua's leadership, the land was apportioned to the tribes, each receiving their inheritance as decreed by God. In Joshua 20, God commanded the establishment of 6 cities of refuge, places where those accused of manslaughter could seek asylum and receive a fair trial. These cities, Kadesh, Shechem, Hebron, Bezer, Ramoth, and Golan, were strategically located across the land, accessible to all. The cities of refuge reflected God's justice and mercy, ensuring protection for the innocent while upholding accountability. They were a vital part of the covenant community, symbolizing God's concern for fairness and the sanctity of life. As Joshua's life drew to a close, he summoned the nation to Shechem for a solemn covenant renewal ceremony. Standing in the shadow of Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal, where blessings and curses were once proclaimed, Joshua reminded the people of God's faithfulness and their responsibility to serve him. In Joshua 24, he declared, "Choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord." This powerful declaration set the tone for Israel's future, calling them to exclusive devotion to Yahweh. Joshua's leadership culminated in this moment of covenant renewal. The stone set up at Shechem stood as a witness, reminding future generations of their commitment to the Lord. Act 3 of Joshua reflects the culmination of God's promises. The land was divided, justice was established, and the covenant was renewed. Joshua's final acts of leadership remind us that God's faithfulness endures, and his covenant invites each generation to choose him anew. As Joshua neared the end of his life, he gathered the Israelites at Shechem for a final address. The year was 1399 BC, and Joshua, now over 100 years old, had faithfully led Israel through conquest and settlement. Standing in the same location where Abraham first received God's promise centuries earlier, Joshua issued a final challenge to the nation. In Joshua 23 and 24, he called the people to remain faithful to Yahweh, warning them against the dangers of idolatry and compromise. His words echoed those of Moses. "Be very strong. Be careful to obey all that is written in the book of the law of Moses." Joshua 23, verse 6. Joshua's challenge to Israel was not merely about obedience. It was about commitment to the covenant relationship with God. His words resound through the ages, calling every generation to make their choice. Joshua 24, verses 26 to 27, records that Joshua set up a large stone as a witness to the covenant. He declared, "This stone will be a witness against us. It has heard all the words the Lord has said to us. It will be a witness against you if you are untrue to your God." This solemn act reaffirmed Israel's commitment to Yahweh as their God and King. After these events, Joshua, the servant of the Lord, passed away at the age of 110. He was buried in the land of his inheritance, Timnath-Serah, in the hill country of Ephraim. His legacy endured through a generation that remained faithful to the Lord during his lifetime and beyond. The book of Joshua reminds us of God's faithfulness to his promises and his call for unwavering trust and obedience. It is a story of conquest and covenant, but more importantly, it is a call to every generation to choose faithfulness to God. Joshua's challenge, "Choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve," transcends time, inviting us to walk in the legacy of faith he left behind. In every trial and triumph, Joshua's story is a testament to the power of faith, the importance of obedience, and the assurance of God's enduring presence. Joshua's life and leadership remind us that the God of Israel is a God who keeps his promises. His faithfulness endures, calling us to trust him in every season. The story of Joshua is not just Israel's story. It is the story of all who choose to walk in faith, guided by the one who goes before them.
Thank you for joining the time traveler on this journey through history. If you found this story moving, insightful, or worth remembering, please take a moment to support the channel by clicking the like button. It helps more people discover these important stories. And if you'd like to see more documentaries like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. Together, we can keep these stories alive for future generations. Your support means the world. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.